Welcome to our Animal Justice Academy Lunchtime Live. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I'm the director of Animal Justice Academy. Our theme today is how meditation and mindfulness can strengthen your activism. And we have Tashi Nyima joining us. And it's so wonderful to have all of you beings here with us today. I want to welcome those of you who are also watching the replay. So Tashi, let me give you a proper introduction here. The Venerable Tashi Nyima has studied under eminent lamas in the Jonang, Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Gelug lineages of Vajrayana Tibetan Buddhism, and leads the Universal Compassion Buddhist congregation with sanghas in North and South America. For more than 3 decades, Lama Tashi has shared non-sectarian Dharma teachings in person and through extensive use of social media and virtual platforms, and leads several meditation retreats for animal rights activists throughout the year. He also publishes 2 daily Dharma blogs and manages several Buddhist internet groups. And we are going to put some information and some links around Tashi's groups and Tashi's organization as we go through our time today. And Tashi works both in English and Spanish. Tashi, we're so happy to have you here today live and in the flesh.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's a joy to be here. And hello, everyone. So wonderful to see so many people who are animal lovers and respecters. There's a lot of people who love but don't respect animals. So it's good to have both.
Absolutely. That's such a great way of differentiating it, you know, animal lovers and animal respecters. Love that, because yeah, whenever I hear I'm an animal lover, I'm like, what kind of animal lover are you? So Tashi, to anybody who can listen, who listens, I talk about what an incredible person I think you are. When I first had the experience of attending one of your retreats, probably for the first time 3 years ago, I didn't really know what I was going to. It was Joanne MacArthur told me, just come, it's going to be great for you. And I didn't realize there would be a real live Buddhist monk who was a activist, a badass animal rights vegan. Like, I was like, where did this person come from? And you are kind of like one of our best, you know, hidden secrets, which we're trying not to hide so much anymore, Tashi. So can you just give folks a little bit of an idea of your path, you know, to first of all becoming a Buddhist monk, but also your path to becoming an animal rights activist? I know there's a lot there, but if you can give us some of the Coles notes, that would be wonderful.
Very, very briefly, I'm originally from Puerto Rico. And as a good Puerto Rican boy, I was extremely Catholic. By the way, I'm not one of those people who say I'm a recovering Catholic. I find that disrespectful. There's many things about that church that I admire and respect. And, but in my evolution, I would say, I started noticing certain discrepancies between a teaching which is supposed to be all about love and great empty spaces in that love for people, for humans who didn't agree with certain moral or political standards, and especially for animals. My animal activism preceded my Buddhism. I started noticing that there were many, many religions in the world who spoke very, very eloquently about love and respect and sharing the planet, but very few actually did. So I started looking and started reading, and then I met some wonderful people who were not necessarily Buddhist, but inclined to Buddhist or Buddhist adjacent. And they introduced me to certain books. And little by little, I veered in that direction. And I think, I'm terrible with dates, so don't quote me, but I think I first ordained in a Buddhist monastery in 1982, something like that. But again, don't hold me to dates. Dates are not my strong suit. Anyhow, I was
And Tashi,
originally,
you were a doctor before you became a monk, right?
and during, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was originally in the Nyima lineage, and then I met my teacher, my root teacher, Tashi Nyima Rinpoche, and I discovered a lineage that was unknown to me at the time, the Jonang. And one of the things that is striking about the Jonang is that in the 14th century in Tibet, without Whole Foods or Sprouts or any health food stores, the leader of that lineage, Dolpopa Sherab Gyaltsen, published a manifesto entitled Prohibition of Meat and Alcohol. And since the 14th century, the lineage has been a very strong advocate of what at the time was called pure vegetarianism. The term veganism had not been invented, right? So I naturally gravitated towards the Jonang, and I've been in the Jonang lineage ever since. That's it. No more.
No more.
That.
That's it. That's all the story there. Well, Tashi, what's it like being in the world of Buddhism as a vegan and an animal advocate? I mean, I know there's some vague nods in Buddhism to, not obviously not killing. I mean, that's not a vague nod, but vague nods to veganism, vegetarianism. But you would think, because one of the precepts is do not kill, it would be more widespread. So how does it feel sort of navigating through the world of Buddhism as a vegan and as an animal advocate?
You'd be surprised at the numbers and percentages of Buddhists worldwide that actually follow a vegan lifestyle. Particularly, Buddhism is divided generally into what is called the Southern transmission and the Northern transmission. The Southern transmission includes Sri Lanka, Thailand, etc., Myanmar, and the Northern includes Tibet, China, Japan, and basically most members of the Northern transmission adhere to, at the very least, a vegetarian diet.
Okay.
In the Southern transmission, things are changing. I worked for some time. I don't anymore, but I support and endorse them. I worked very closely with an organization called Dharma Voices for Animals, which is actually doing great work in the Southern Buddhist lineages and accomplishing great things, because all the teachings are there. People just have to be reminded, right? We don't have to create anything new. The Buddha spoke eloquently, and blatantly, clearly about the need to consider animals just exactly as humans, right? No speciesism allowed.
Wow. And so, so do you get much pushback on your vegan ethics?
Not from within Buddhism.
No, that's good. That's great.
I find it funny. Our congregation, which is not that big, right? I don't think there was one woman who was vegan. And now I think I would say 95% are. But
nice work.
it has to do with consistency and approach. And because I've spoken with you about this before, and it's on the AJA modules, I think that we have to exemplify that which we want. So if we want a more loving world, we have to be loving. If we want a more peaceful world, we have to be peaceful. If we want a world without oppression, we cannot oppress people. So little by little, with encouragement, with reminders, we can slowly but surely make headway in transforming people's hearts, because the mind is one thing, right? A lot of people understand the problems with animal agriculture, for example, but are not ready to do anything about it because their hearts have not connected with the suffering of animals. So that is our job. Our job is to help people open their hearts and connect with the real presence of animals in the world, the real suffering, and the real right that they have to be happy and free.
Mm. Tashi, is this why you feel so compelled to do these meditation retreats for people who are doing animal advocacy work? So Tashi's been doing meditation retreats in cooperation with the Pollination Project. Ari Nessel, shout out our wonderful friend Ari here tonight. And this has been a special love and passion for Ari as well. But Tashi, you come and you do these, I think you're doing like about 4 a year, including the English and Spanish ones. So why is this a place that you feel compelled to apply your time and energy?
2 reasons, Kimberly. The first one is because I think that is a very stressful endeavor. Animal rights activists, we live in a world, we're submerged in the world where the norm is cruelty. And therefore, we are constantly overwhelmed with feelings of sadness and regret. And I pray not too much anger, but I recognize that it is there. And so the first one is to give some solace to people who work in the animal rights movement, and to help them develop the skills and the strategies to protect themselves, right, so that they can continue their work. The second one is because sometimes in the animal rights movement, we have become anti-human. And we have forgotten that humans also are animals, and that oppressing humans or vilifying humans is no different from calling rats and mice vermin. We have to, again, if we want a loving world, a world in which species respect each other, we need to respect everyone, including those who are currently indoctrinated into doing something else. I always speak, and you've heard me talk about this before, unless you were born in a vegan household, and I don't know how many of us here were, I certainly was not, you were put into what I call the high chair of indoctrination, right? That high chair that every family has, where you put a baby in, you lock the baby in, sometimes you tie the baby, and then you bring the spoon, and you open the mouth and you say, and the baby has no choice. The baby is indoctrinated into meat eating from a age. I mean, they have like those little jars already have beef and chicken and turkey and eggs and heaven knows what. So we have to understand that when people have been indoctrinated, have been told that this is normal, that this is natural, it's not that they're bad people. It's that they do not know better. And I always say, ignorance cannot be punished. It must be corrected.
Yes, I love when you say that, Tashi. And I have also witnessed that when you say that, there are a lot of people that push back and say, but they do know. They've seen the videos. They've seen, the articles. They have an animal. They do know. And you say, Tashi,
If they actually knew, they would not. There's a difference between having a concept, actually knowing. Knowing is of the heart. Of course, I'm not talking about the pump, right? I'm talking about that aspect of all sentient beings in which something becomes part of your awareness. To know something mentally, conceptually, is not the same thing as knowing. To have information is not the same thing as knowing. It's like most of us probably have books in our homes that we haven't read. Right? So we have that knowledge, but it's not part of us. So when people say, oh, they know, well, they knew, it would be different. They actually do not know. They do not know how they are being harmed, how others are being harmed, what mass suffering they are contributing.
Yeah. And as you put it, intellectually they may know, but deep in their soul and their being, it's not hitting them. It's the truth of it isn't hitting them, or they would be different. And there's many reasons for those layers to be on them, that it doesn't get through, right? And none of those are their fault.
We're surrounded by it. How many ads do you see? Those a regular person see? I haven't had a TV set, I don't know, maybe in 60 years, but most people, watch constant advertising. And some of these things are actually physically addictive. And so we are not only dealing with a conceptual issue here, we're dealing here with a physical issue, with an emotional issue, and we have to address it in all of these areas. I'll give you an example. I told you in the beginning when I started Sangha here. Sangha is a Buddhist congregation. There was one woman who was vegan and the rest were not. And what I started doing was having potluck dinners where I lived. And the only condition was that everything that was brought in had to be vegan. And of course, I didn't say because you're bad people. No, I said because please do that, respecting that I can't, right, have that where I live. And little by little, people started changing not only how they thought at it, but they actually started doing something about it. And that's important thing, giving people the opportunity to act in accordance with their true nature. All sentient beings, without exception, even the ones that you can't even imagine, all of them have what we call enlightened nature, Buddha nature, awakened nature. In some, it's very hidden, but it's there. You just have to give it an opportunity to come up.
I'm not sure if anyone else is having a little bit of trouble hearing Tashi. Tashi, your connection might be just a little bit, but there's a little bit of an audio. That's all right. I don't think you can do anything about it, but you might move a little closer to the microphone just because we're losing a little bit of your volume. Yeah, no, that's great. We want to hear every word, Tashi. We're hanging on every word. So, okay. So Tashi, there are so many good reasons for folks to be doing work that helps to make them more compassionate, more enduring. A lot of animal advocates, though, are so resistant to taking this kind of time to nourish themselves. For very good reasons. We have a gargantuan task that we're facing ahead of us in this movement. Thousands of animals are literally dying every minute. So what do you say? What can you say to convince them, us here, that it's vital to take that time?
Again, we can't force anyone. But I think that the experience tells us, no matter how hard we work, if our actions are not effective, we are not doing much good. Just because we put in the effort and the hours does not mean that we are achieving results. Remember, and I've been there, when I started my animal rights activism, I was one of those people who, sorry to say, that threw red paint at women who were fur.
You did do that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
I'm not proud of it, but I did it. You know how many people we convinced? Zero. On the contrary, I think that we encourage some people to be more blatant about their fur choices. So, yeah, we put in the effort, we put in the hours, we risked going to jail for what? We didn't change any hearts, we didn't change any minds. So my argument, if you want to call it that, is that if you take a little time to create the conditions within yourself that allow for greater effectiveness and efficiency, you will actually be a better animal rights activist. So even if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your effectiveness in the work. Let me ask you, is there anything at all in our life that cannot be improved with a little bit more peace and clarity?
Oh, Tashi, we just missed that last part. It dropped out on us. Anything that couldn't be improved with what?
Peace and clarity.
Peace and clarity.
Right? Whatever you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're agitated, you're distracted, and you can't see things clearly, then you will not be effective. So meditation gives you the way to maintain peace and clarity all the time. Remember, meditation is a practice. There's a reason why we call it practice. We're not asking you to be sitting on a cushion 24/7. That would be a waste of your time and probably would damage the cushion. What we need, right, is practice. Practice with everything else, right? Why do you practice? So that you can do it in your everyday life. So meditation is the same thing. Right? People often say, well, I don't know how to meditate, because they're expecting meditation to be this grandiose, almost Hollywood-like experience where you like see lights and hear sounds and smell divine aromas and all that. That's not it.
Definitely not it.
Meditation is the practice in a controlled environment of maintaining your peace. You don't have to do anything for the clarity. Clarity is a direct result of peace. For example, have you ever lost your keys or something else, and you're crazily looking for them everywhere? You can't find them. You're agitated. And then you notice, oh, I have them right here in my hand. You were not blind during that time, but your agitation did not allow you to see them right there in front of you. When there is peace, there is clarity. And that's all we're doing in meditation. You're not looking for an experience. The experience is in ordinary life. If you get up while you're on the cushion meditating, the cushion, I say the cushion, but it could be a chair, it could be standing, it could be walking. If you, during that time, have visions and feel like you're floating and even physically levitate, and then when you finish meditating, you go and you bark at someone, or you act in ways that are harmful to yourself or others, that meditation was useless. If you are on the cushion and you're struggling to keep your attention on your breath, but you endure, and then when you get up, you feel a little bit more kindly disposed towards others. You feel a little bit more cooperative, you feel a little bit more compassionate. That meditation was a great success. So it's not about what happens during meditation. The important thing is what happens after meditation.
Yeah. There's this impression that meditation is supposed to, it's supposed to feel great. You're supposed to get all blissed out. And I think that's what made me avoid it for many years. Was I was sitting down and meditating, and it was torture. It was torture. And I mean, still is sometimes torture. I meditate every day, and it still can be difficult sometimes, but that's the practice, is continuing to come back to right here, right now. Just let practice over and over again, so that we don't all sleepwalk through our life. And so, Tashi, again, some people have never done meditation before, and they have this sort of mystical idea in their head. But meditation can be as simple as just watching your breath, like just paying attention to your breathing, right?
It's literally, there are even some traditions, particularly in the Zen lineages, where it's just sitting. Literally, just sit for a particular period of time and let things happen. That's one way. Focusing on the breath, that's one advantage. I don't know if you're familiar with Pema Chodron. She's a very famous Buddhist teacher.
One of my favorites.
Says, you can't breathe in the past, and you can't breathe in the future. The only time when you can breathe is now, in the present. Therefore, if you're breathing, you're in the present. Because most of us actually spend most of our time elsewhere, thinking about what I should have done, what happened, or thinking what I will do. And that just brings confusion to the mind. The mind, actually, that's the meaning of mindfulness, right? Is not to be distracted. That's the meaning of, actually, we call it meditation, but in Buddhism, we call it concentration, right? It's the eighth member of the Eightfold Noble Path. It's right concentration. And concentration is not like a throwing of the brow, like, oh, a forceful thing. It is avoiding distraction. That's all there is. So you can use many different objects of meditation. You can use the breath. You can use mantra, which is the repetition of a sound mentally. You can use a visual, the focus. The issue is to train the mind to rest in one place. And I specifically want to use the phrase rest, not push, not grab, not fixate, rest.
And yeah, and I think that one of the other big things that people don't understand about meditation, it's not about escaping somewhere. It's about coming and trying to be right here, right now, like trying to let go of everything that's stopping you from being right here, right now. And so when we get off of the meditation cushion or the chair or whatever we're doing, that's when we sort of go into more mindful living. So can we talk a little bit about this idea of mindfulness? What that means to you through what you sort of know that it means to others. I know that's not a word that you necessarily use in your teaching, but how could practicing this idea of mindfulness, of being more present, especially be helpful for animal advocates?
We do use the word mindfulness, but in its original meaning, the term in Sanskrit is smriti, in Pali it's sati. And both of them mean recollection. And what does recollection mean? Right recollection, right mindfulness means to remember that which is to be avoided and that which is to be adopted. That is the true meaning of mindfulness. So it is to remember your purpose. It is not to lose sight of your purpose. This is not not something, not a conceptual exercise. This is to be so much imbued with your purpose that it naturally expresses itself in all you do. So, for example, a mindful person will be very careful with movement because there's the opportunity, the possibility of causing harm to others when we move without thinking. A person who is mindful will speak in ways that are truthful and timely and kind, precisely remembering that speech is the lobby, if you will, of action, right? Whenever you speak, you're either preparing yourself to act or triggering somebody else to act. So mindfulness is to constantly be aware that every action has consequences. If I were to literally like boil it down, that's it. Mindfulness is to remember everything that we do, our thoughts, our words, and deeds, everything has consequences. And it is better to think of those, right, before we act. Have you ever, like, I pray not, but we all have, you write an angry email, you send it, and then you regret it, right? Before the age of email, it used to happen, we used to say things to people and then, oop, I shouldn't have said that. Mindfulness will stop you. Mindfulness will give you a little gap in which you say, maybe not. Maybe I'm not saying this. Maybe I'm not sending this email. Maybe I will consider the consequences before I engage in this action. Otherwise, mindfulness becomes this, very popular, very trendy thing, but it's all about, being here now. You can't be anywhere else anyway, right? I mean, there's only one place to be. It is about knowing that your actions have consequences.
Just for the folks that are listening, I'm hearing a couple of some folks that are saying about having a little bit of trouble still hearing Tashi, and someone suggested putting earphones in really helps. I think it does help. And Tashi, if there's any way to move your computer a little closer to you, that might also help. I think it's just your video is great. It's just your audio keeps cutting out. So I think it might be something to do with your microphone.
I move the microphone closer, but
yeah, we'll work with it. We're, like I said, we're paying close attention. We're being very mindful of what you're saying. So and somebody said it's helping them with actually practice with their ADD. So so for those folks that are, interested in starting a meditation practice, a wonderful place to be able to start or continue or pick up or deepen is the animal advocate meditation retreat that happens virtually a few times a year, twice in English. And one is coming up at the end of May. Kirsten is going to put the information into the comment box. Because of the Pollination Project, who organizes it, and Tashi giving so beautifully of his time, it's free to register. Of course, we take there's donations that are received if you care to at the end, but it is completely free if you are wanting to attend for free. But Tashi, could you give us a little sense of what these meditation retreats are all about, and why somebody might take a couple of days out of their life to do it online?
Yes, basically we have over the years found a very nice strategy. It is an easy retreat to do. We have discrete sessions. We start on an evening. I believe that this particular one, because it's in the Memorial Day weekend, I think we're starting on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. because it's Monday's a holiday. But basically, we begin the evening, the first day, with the introductions. We explain what we're about to do. And then we have 2-hour sessions. And between those 2-hour sessions, many of them during the next 2 days, we have ample time to take care of our bodies, take care of our families if we have them, take care of our animal companions. So it is very easy to do. We encourage people to participate as much as possible, but we know that life happens, and we try very hard to make every single session self-standing, so that if you cannot be there for the entire time, you will still gain benefit from it. We share strategies, specific practical strategies to reduce stress, to increase peace and clarity, to help us think about how to speak, how to act in ways that are beneficial to ourselves and to others. And we tend to have a particular focus for each of these retreats. For this upcoming retreat in English, at the end of May, the topic is managing emotions, not suppressing them, not expressing them, but managing them.
Yeah, so managing emotions, if anybody missed that, that is the theme.
So we're going to look at different strategies, right? Observation is the first one. If you don't know what is going on in your mind, then you won't be able to manage it. So most people are actually too caught up in their emotions to even notice that they have them. You ever told someone, "Why are you so angry?" and they snap back at you, "I'm not angry." Or, "Why are you so sad?" "I'm not sad." So the first thing is observation, and we increase that, or we make that possible through mindfulness of the body, the posture, of the breath, mindfulness of our feelings, recollection, attention to them, attention to what is our mental state, what is the content of our mind. And then we go into other strategies, such as how do we focus attention? How we deal with the internal discourse, right? Because we're always having this little self-dialogue going on. What are postures that accentuate or diminish emotional upheaval? What are patterns of breath that help us maintain centeredness? Then we go into transformation. How do we transform some of these emotions, harmful emotions, into loving kindness, into compassion, into rejoicing? And finally, how do we release agitation into equanimity? How do we make the transition between what are difficult states that are unhelpful? They're not bad. We're not here labeling anything as bad. Emotions are not bad, they just are. The question is, are they helpful or are they not helpful?
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what we're going to be doing in this particular one at the end of May. In the Spanish language one, which is coming up this weekend, right? You or anyone that you know speaks Spanish, there's still opportunity. We have over 120 people signed up. Usually about a third show up. We are going to be exploring the 16 conditions that make us kinder.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably a first. A lot of people just say, just cultivate loving kindness. Wow. Just saying it's not going to work, right? There are components of loving kindness, and we're going to explore 16 of them, specifically mentioned by the Buddha in the famous Metta or Maitri Sutra. Now, I wanted to make it clear, although evidently I'm a Buddhist, and evidently I'm not going to pretend that our teachings are Buddhist free. Our retreats do not intend to make anyone Buddhist and do not intend to convince anyone of anything. One of the things that we value above all else is freedom. Like freedom is another word for liberation. One cannot help people become liberated by trying to indoctrinate. We offer these strategies, this information, and every single person has to decide for her or for himself what is suitable, what is to be adopted, what is to be discarded.
And I think it's just, important for folks to know that meditation is woven through the entire retreat, but you're not going to be meditating from 8 a.m. to, 9 p.m. It's done in very reasonable pieces, smaller, getting a little bit bigger. And I think the wonderful things, the other wonderful thing about the retreat, besides having a space that you clear and you kind of go into a silent, unplugged place for a couple of days, that in itself is gold for me. But the other thing is Tashi teaches. Tashi will be teaching, and then he is always open for discussion, questions. So there's a lot of back and forth. There is a lot of opportunity for you to bring the things that you've been carrying with you to the table. And Tashi has a wonderful way of sort of framing things and helping you maybe look at things in a different way. So yeah, it's a beautiful experience, folks. So we have,
really interactive. I just wanted to stress that there's many ways you can actually ask questions during the sessions, or you can actually write them in, and then we will answer them at the beginning of the next session.
Yeah, you don't have to be like, opening your mouth, and you don't have to talk, in the group if you don't want to. It's always welcomed, but you can be very quiet and write your answers into a little document. So Tashi, we have a few minutes left, and I haven't seen any questions that have come up in the chat, but if you do have a question, you can do capital Q star Q just to let us know that there is a question. But I have lots of questions, and one that I really love to hear you talk about, Tashi, is there is just so much conflict sometimes in our movement, with animal activists. I think it's in every social justice movement, really. You've got a lot of passionate people who are a little bit desperate for change. Put them together, and we, there's going to be some fireworks. So do you have any guidance that you can share with the folks here around dealing with conflict, and especially dealing with that infighting?
That's one of the things that we always have to address during every retreat. All this fighting comes because we're very passionate about what we're doing. So the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that people are not being difficult because they want to be difficult. They're, in our view, are being difficult because they strongly hold a particular view of what is to be done. We begin with respect. Respecting the intention, even though we may disagree with the way it is presented. I think that we will have a better platform on which to speak. I think that we need to acknowledge that there are many, many different ways to approach this subject. And some may not be right for me, but they may be right for somebody else. And I've certainly done things that right now I wouldn't do again, But I'm not going to say I was a bad person when I did them. I just, in my view, I was less skillful then. There's a couple of questions that I saw. One of them is how you cannot participate this May. How do you learn about future ones? I would recommend that even if you are not going to participate, register, because then we will have your address and be able to communicate with you the next time around. And you may even in your application or whatever it's called, registration, just make a note that it's for future retreats. I would say that's the most direct thing. They usually happen. The one in English is usually around Memorial Day, in the late spring, and around Thanksgiving in fall.
American Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yes, not Canadian Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
In Spanish, usually a few weeks before each of those. And we actually, I don't know this time around, but we usually offer one, not with me because I don't speak the language, but we usually offer one in German and one in Portuguese.
Oh, Tashi.
One in Portuguese is not happening this year, but very soon.
There's no end to the wonders of Tashi. Tashi, I have one more question for you. In addition to your animal activism, you also do activism around death row inmates in Texas, and you have in the past. A lot of animal activists out there just feel that there's too few people working on animal issues, which is true. There's far too few people working on animal issues, and that we shouldn't be taking the time away to work on human issues. So why do you do this, the death row work?
Every single form of oppression, every single form of injustice has exactly the same source. There's the belief that some are more important than others, and that our views, our intentions, our plans are more worthy of implementing. If you look at any form of oppression, whether it is patriarchal oppression, whether it's oppression of sexual orientation minorities, whether it's oppression of animals, everything can be traced back to these two wrong views. The view of separation have nothing to do with that, and the view of supremacy are more important. Again, like I said in the beginning, if we want a world in which there is more love and more respect, then we have to be consistent. Not everybody has to dedicate a whole lot of time and effort to every cause. We couldn't do it. But I think that one of the charges that is brought against the animal rights movement is we don't care about humans. And we do care about humans. We should care about them. So we need to take some time, even if it does not consume our effort and our time. But we need to be what is today called intersectional, right? We need to recognize that the oppression of some is the oppression of all, and that slaughtering humans and slaughtering animals is very similar, right? It's sentient beings who don't want to die. And if we are upholding the right of some, then why are we not upholding the rights of others? I think that our hearts are big enough to the need to help all sentient beings, not just some. But it's also speciesism.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we talk a lot in Animal Justice Academy about, it's really important for us to really stay focused on what our mission is, but it's also really important to be allies and supporters of other social justice movements as well. At least be aware and at least be, supportive when we can be. Kirsten, can you put us back into gallery view? And I'm going to ask folks to turn back their cameras on if they turn them off, because Tashi, it's so very special to have you here. And if you aren't seeing everybody, Tashi, just go back to your view and choose gallery view so you can see all these happy faces. Tashi, you've meant a lot to so many of us that have been part of your retreats and part of your sanghas. And thank you. The movement just would not be the same without you. You're really changing it, one retreat, one person at a time. And folks, I'm going to be part of the retreat as usual, end of May. So I hope you'll join us, our circle. Can we give a big AJ thank you to Tashi for coming out today? Thank you, Tashi.
You. Remember, we do a follow-up meeting every month for all participants of every retreat. We do a short meditation and a little check-in every month. So we won't leave you hanging, right? We will accompany you from then on, as long as we're able.
Yeah, absolutely. I just through these retreats, I have found such beautiful meditation communities that I've been a part of, that I am a part of weekly. It's just been such a beautiful gift. So, folks, we'll put the link in one more time for the Animal Advocate Meditation Retreat that's happening online end of May. And also, folks, if you are love our Animal Justice Academy programming, Kirsten's also going to drop our donation link in the chat. If you want to, help us continue with our work with Animal Justice Academy and with Animal Justice, that would be great. And I don't think that link works, Kirsten, so you might have to do a clickable link. And if you're not already on our email list to get notices of upcoming events, make sure to sign up for free at animaljusticeacademy.com. Folks, let's do everything we can to find our own peace, our own compassion, our own joy, so that we can just continue to ripple that out into the world. Tashi, you've been a big part of that. Thank you, everybody. We will see you for our next event. And please, go forth and have just a wonderful day. See you. Bye, everyone. Bye, Tashi.